Always like to unpack the word or the meaning of, and the word decolonization means to become independent of the colonizers of a place. First and foremost, Tonga wasn't colonized. But there is debate around the fact that the Christian influence was a sense of colonization. But if you think about it in the history of our Tongan introductions into Christianity, it was a choice made, and our king chose Christianity. It was no enforced process or transaction that occurred. So we've got to be really careful of the use of those terminologies on specific Pacific groups. The blanket approach of decolonization, I get it, but when I speak from my Tongan spaces, we weren't colonized. We've never had to get independence from anybody. And we chose Christianity, and we chose it for very...
You can follow this on the Breaking Waves podcast. Thoughts, Urs?
Yeah, nah, that's not true. That's not true. That's really off. I say that respectfully, but there were massacres in Tonga. Massacres of people who did not accept Christianity. There was a massacre in Hule of over 300 people. Men, women, and children were all slaughtered. And she mentioned King George, right? Yeah, so Taufa Ahau, I think was his Tongan name. So the Wesleyan Church backed a chief like they did in Samoa, right? The three powers all had three factions in Samoa, like they did in Hawaii with King Kamehameha. It's a technique they did everywhere in the Pacific, where they worked through a local chief or a powerful chief.
Right.
And
well, you just said this previously. They pick the one person that's got the power, and
yes, and then they work through him. And there's a massive book that even academics today talk about. It's by Peter Dillon, and he was there at the time, and they call it the Tongan Civil Wars of 1837. And he was there at the time, and he wrote a massive criticism of what the Wesleyan missionaries were doing and how they were putting Tongan against Tongan. And he wrote how disgusting what they were doing in supporting and encouraging King George Tupou to do the most atrocious crimes and to murder his own people, all for the church. There were times where he would say himself that I'm only doing this for protection of Christianity, so, and what he was doing was completely massacring people. There was the 300 people who got massacred in Hule, and that was simply because they did not accept Christianity. And Peter Dillon wrote this. He wrote, all for the crime of not embracing a religion that already created more bloodshed and more cruelty than any other event recorded in Tonga. So he was saying the crime that these people committed was that they did not accept Christianity. So they had to be slaughtered. Okay, and he slaughtered men, women, and children. And that's in Hule. That's the Hule massacre. There was another one in Ngeleia. These ones were in Tongatapu. So this is the main island, where he slaughtered, I think it's 40 to 60 people, men, women, and children, cut their heads off and sent it to one of the rebel leaders. As a warning, you have to embrace Christianity or this is going to happen to you. The idea that Tongans chose freely to accept Christianity is a lie. That's a horrendous lie, because many Tongans stood up and fought for their own traditional practices, and they were murdered because of it, because they did not accept Christianity. They chose not to, and they were murdered. All right, so that's not a free choice. Oh, okay. They didn't freely choose Christianity. If you chose something else, you were dead. You had your head cut off. And the description of what they did to the women, ripping their bodies open and things like that. And he sends a warning. And one of his, I think it's in the islands of Ha'apai. And he's fighting, I forgot the leader's name, sorry. And he sends a warning. I have the pulu papalangi. I have the Palangi's bullets, So he is being weaponized and armed by the church, just like Aotearoa was in Samoa. The very first thing that John Williams gave Aotearoa in Samoa wasn't a Bible. The very first thing were two guns, a blunderbuss and a musket. All right, so the church, they have this plan that they're doing around the world, is getting indigenous people to destroy indigenous people and to champion Christianity, and any type of resistance must be slaughtered. There must be no person alive that believes in the traditions. And there is a quote by a bishop, I forgot his name, but he says, man, Tongans must be dumb, because they prefer the destruction of their own culture, of themselves. They would rather die than accept our Christian God. You know what I mean? So there were thousands of Tongans who said, no, we do not accept Christianity. We would rather die than accept Christianity. And they died. Okay, so these massacres are not taught. Like, no one knows about these massacres. No one knows about the Battle of Velata as well, is another one. And the funny thing is that King Tupou, who must have been an accomplished sailor, because him and his army are sailing to these islands. If you see Tonga's not one island. It's many islands. They might have the most islands in the Pacific, but they have a lot of islands. And so he's sailing to them all. And he's going there and just wiping them out, man. Like dude was full on. So the irony is that he's got his warriors who all have alia or kalia, these massive sailboats, and they're all tatted up, and they're killing all the people who believe in the traditional customs. And then he installs a code of ava'u, and he installs all these laws that ban tattooing, that ban navigation, and ban traditional dances and traditional ceremonies. And if you do them, you're gonna be killed. Like, it's a lie. It is not true that it was a choice. Now, in terms of decolonization, I think Tongans have a lot of culture. Like, decolonization is a spectrum, man. It's not like you either are or you aren't. Like, man, they've kept a lot of their culture, man. Really awesome, man. They're awesome. But in terms of this, that Christianity is a choice, perhaps for this generation and the recent generations. But for that generation that had the missionaries coming, who had to deal with the Christian king, that he was compared to King Saul, you know, and he was backed by a missionary called John Thomas, and he was funded. And this is who Peter Dillon was criticizing. He sent letters to the London Committee. Look at the crimes, the atrocious crimes your missionaries are pushing this man to commit. What are you doing? You guys shouldn't be doing this. And even to this day, nearly 200 years later, academics are talking about Peter Dillon and what he said about what these missionaries were doing in order to destroy the traditional culture of the Tongan people and to absolutely mutilate and exterminate anybody who followed the traditional ways. And they were slaughtered, massacred, every single person in these forts, in Hule, in Ngeleia, in Tongatapu, every single person was killed. There were no survivors. Heads were sent to rebel leaders. And it's a lie. That's not true. Maybe for this generation, you have a degree of choice, and I feel it. I feel like I can choose. But the generations before, the real generation that had to deal with the missionaries arriving with their guns, same in Samoa, our people did what they had to do to survive. All right, we will convert because, man, I don't want to see my kids' heads cut off like they were in Hule. All right, I don't want to see my family massacred. I will convert. There's no choice.